You know, honestly, before Gaia asked me to do this, I really hadn't given much thought to aging. And thanks to her, I now have been thinking about it, so thank you. You know, the first thing I did with it, I did word association. I thought, well, what do I think of when I hear words like old and aging or youth and young and new? You know, what does that bring to mind? And I think what it brought to my mind is what it brings to most people's mind, that when we talk about aging and old, we think of losing stuff. Losing our keys, that's how it starts. And then little by little, losing our mind, losing our stamina, losing our income, and I could go on and on. I think those are the kind of things that people think of initially when they think of getting old and aging. And then I thought, well, there's got to be an upside. What do we gain? And then I thought, oh yeah, we gain perspective. If we're lucky, we get some wisdom, some knowledge. Our skills gain. So there's really a huge upside to it. So I've had role models for both kinds of aging. When I was a kid, my parents and my grandparents were kind of my window on the future, and frankly, it didn't look that exciting to me. I remember when Bobby Ackerman turned 32, I was 14, and I thought, oh my God, he's an old man. I really thought that when he turned 32. But then I think, you know, 32 back when I was 14 was pretty old. It's not like that anymore. Anyway, back then I had the narcissism of youth, and I want to bring that back to mind for everybody here. You know, when you're a kid, the whole world seems to be about you. Do you remember that? And when people say things to you, it's about you. If they react, it's about you. And I had a lot of that going on, and if I could go back and relive my life, knowing then what I know now, the big thing I take with me is that it wasn't about me. I mean, that's a huge aha. When you meet young people, they're really carrying the burden of the whole world is about them. Every look, every gesture, every statement, the directives they get from their parents and other authority figures, it's about them. But it's not. It's about the people saying all that stuff to them. And they don't get to find that out until they're us. Which means that nature's a hard teacher. Because she gives the test first and the lesson way after. And the only hope any young people have of learning those lessons is from us. But somehow we don't succeed in letting them know that until they're us. And then they're faced with that same challenge. Anyway, I was fortunate that when I turned 18 and 19 years old, I got a couple of great role models of aging. I was living overseas in Israel at the time. And one of my role models was a guy named Yitzhak Ben Abraham. He was about 78, 79 years old. And he managed the orchards, the cherry orchards on this kibbutz where I lived. And he had a relationship with every single tree. He had planted it, raised it, watched it form, helped shape its life, and he talked to the trees. And I remember thinking, he's a crazy old man. Until he and I were given an assignment to do a job together. And the assignment from the work office was that we were to dig a grave. And I'll tell you right now that when you're digging a grave in Israel, you can't really dig a grave because the ground is made out of rock. So you basically use a hammer and a chisel and you pound a lot. And it's very hot, and you're pounding a lot. And I remember I was maybe 18, 19 years old, and I was digging this grave with this old guy, and he knew the guy that they were going to bury in that grave. And after about 20 minutes, I felt like my work was done. I was exhausted, so I sat down on the edge of the hole that we'd started and watched him finish the job. And he did. And the whole time he was doing it, he was whistling and singing and whistling in a graveyard while digging a grave for a guy that he knew he was friends with who died. And the longer this went on, the more confused I became. And finally I said to him, I said, Yitzhak Ben Abraham. I said it in Hebrew. Too soon. All right. I said, how how can you be whistling and singing while digging a grave? And he looked at me and laughed with a toothy grin and rubbed the stubble on his chin, and he said, I outlived that guy. And that's when I realized that people are motivated by different things. Then I met a woman named Roma Tsur, who was a naturopathic doctor in Israel. And this is when I was still, 19 years old. And it was the only job I could find. That's how I met her. She took me on as an apprentice on a very wet winter when the agriculture had come to a complete stop. And I helped her make medicines, and people came from all over the world to be treated by her. I remember thinking, boy, I wish I could learn this, but this is some old school thing. This is from some ancient time. Well, it turned out I could learn it, and that's another story, but that's how I became a naturopathic doctor. But at any rate, I was with Roma. She was always 10 yards ahead of me on everything. She was faster than me physically, faster than me mentally. I could barely keep up with her. Any thought that I might have had that aging meant losing was completely lost at that time in my life to the present reality that aging means a lot of different things and has a lot of potential. So with that, I came here to talk to you about a couple of things. There's an old adage that aging is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. But I think the fact of the matter is that aging successfully is about aiming yourself at whatever stage of life you're in. Aiming yourself at the future and then lining up your motivation to fulfill your values. That's what I think it really comes down to age successfully. And so I'd like to talk about these two things, values and motivation. And this came out of a conversation I had with Gail over the phone. I said, what am I going to talk about? She said, well, you could think of aging the way most people think of difficult people. Kind of wrote the book on that. But the more I thought about it, I thought, I don't really want that to be what it is, because that's not what it is for me. And then we started talking, and it became obvious that our values would shape what this was about. So, values. I tend to agree with Ayn Rand about this idea. Happiness is the state of consciousness that proceeds from the fulfillment of one's values. Here's another value statement, this from Charles Darwin. Who dares to waste 1 hour of life has not discovered the value of life. Sort of an evolutionary idea. And then there's my own personal mission statement, which I lifted from Thomas Paine, who authored the Common Sense pamphlet that launched the American Revolution. And this is what he said. It's really ironic in this day and age to hear that Thomas Paine, who launched the revolution, said this. But it is a value statement. He said, the world is my country. All mankind are my brethren. And to do good is my religion. So values. What are values? Well, I think values are the foundation stones we walk upon in life that lead us to a fulfilling life. Most people don't know what their values are. I ask people, how many of you know what your values are when I teach classes and do seminars, and a bunch of hands go up, and then I trick somebody and I call on them. I go, what are they? And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, what are your values? And they go, they're my values. And they get very uncomfortable, so I stop. But I've observed that most people have a vague idea that they have them, but aren't exactly sure what they are. Kind of a shame. And to add insult to injury, values has become a political world. Politicians get up in front of us and tell us, I share your values. And they talk about family values. And first thing I think of is, give them back. I don't like what you're doing with them. And the second thing I think of is, which family values? Specifically. Because there's lots of them. It's a funny thing. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll make sure to include that next time I talk. All right. It seems to me like way too many people spend their lives following the same pattern that the human race in general follows, which is backing into the future. How many of you would agree that human history consists of human beings doing the same stupid things over and over in new and better ways? Backing into the future. And it seems to me that when you know specifically what your values are, you can do something very different. You can turn. You can face the future. And by the way, everybody right now, whichever way you're facing, your future is in front of you. Whichever way you're facing. And just to notice that. None of us know how long we're going to go on. I might not make it off of this stage. But the fact of the matter is that as long as we go on, the future remains in front of us here in this present moment. So values to me is a very important word. It speaks to what we consider most important in our lives, the benchmarks by which we measure the onslaught of information and experience coming our way in this moment. Values are how we make important decisions about what to do with our life, and they're not a static thing. You know, Buckminster Fuller, one of my heroes, put it this way. He said, "I think I am a verb." The basic idea being that we are unfolding in this moment, that we don't actually know what's next. Nobody really does. Nobody has any more certainty than you do. Nobody has any more longevity than you do. In this moment, we're all on the same page and in the same boat. In other words, we're unfolding, and in my youth, I didn't value my health at all, which you could tell by all the stupid things that potentially could have killed me. I didn't value my health. At this stage of my life, my health is really important to me. I make decisions about my life based on my valuing my health that in my youth never would have crossed my mind. And if you think back over the course of your life, there's like different theme songs that kind of capture how you fulfilled your values in those different stages. So back then, my theme song when I was really young was "Cast Your Fate to the Wind." Anybody remember that? Herbie Mann at the Village Gate. Oh, yeah. As I got older, it was I get by with a little help from my friends. And at this point in my life, because I got two things in mind that I really want to address, and that's my legacy and my retirement, and I'm trying to do them both at the same time. At this point in my life, my theme song is "God Bless the Child That's Got His Own." I don't know what your songs are, but I bet you've got one that would really capture your values. So the problem is that in an absence of clearly defined values, we tend to become strangely loyal to performing daily acts of trivia, and the moment escapes. So what could be more important than identifying our values? Now, I trust that a good many people in this room have done what I'm about to describe in one way or another. But I will tell you, the method my mom tried to teach me as a kid about how to know what your values specifically are. She used to say, "Ricky," actually she used to say, "Ricky, Ricky, Ricky," because it wouldn't answer the first two times. She'd go, "Ricky, Ricky, Ricky." I go, "Yeah, Mom." She said, "Every child is born into this world with 5 coins in his or her pocket." I'd argue, I go, "Kids aren't born with pockets." She'd go, "Just shut up." And I go, "Okay, what?" She said 5 coins, a certain amount of time, a certain amount of money, a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of talent, a certain amount of opportunity. Every child, whether they have a short life or a long life, has this currency of life. And what we do with that currency says a lot about what we value. So how many of you know people that waste their time? Okay? Well, I'm just saying. How many of you know people that will squander their money but would never dream of investing it in anything that would matter to their quality of life? That throw it away, not a problem. How do you know people that opportunity knocks and they fail to answer it? Unless it's carrying pizza or a package from UPS, and then maybe they'll get up. Likewise with talent, I've known people my whole life who had just phenomenal talent who dropped it or dismissed it, decided not relevant, because somebody told them how they should live their life. And it didn't include pay attention to what matters to you. So here's how you identify your values. You simply go, all right, if I had all the time, all the money, all the energy, all the talent, and all the opportunity in the world, in other words, if I had no excuses, what would I be doing with my life right now? And why that? And the answer to why that will tell you what you value. Of course, it comes back differently depending on time of day, time of week, time of month, time of year, and the actual year. But I will say this. You just do that for 30 days. The pattern emerges. You know what matters most to you. And now when life comes at you with all of its experience and opportunity, you have a way of parsing out what's relevant to who you are and what's a waste of your currency. Isn't that kind of cool? So there's an idea about values, and it brings me to motivation. You know, for years, people would ask me, "What do you do?" And I used to love to say I'm a speaker. And the reaction that I would get immediately was, "Oh, a motivational speaker." I mean, I hear that every time I'd say speaker. "Oh, a motivational speaker." I would immediately try to get rid of that. I go, "No." Because I know you can't motivate anyone but yourself. That's a fact. People are self-motivated, not externally motivated. Yeah, I can't make you do anything that you can. But I would try to get rid of that, and I also wanted to get rid of it because it made me think of Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live. He played that guy that lived in a van down by the river eating government cheese, and I didn't want to be that guy. He was a motivational speaker. So, at any rate, and one day it occurred to me, and everybody says this, I wonder what it actually means, so I decided to look into it, and I learned something really interesting. Turns out motivation means direction of movement. You're either moving towards or moving away when you're motivated. You're either motivated to make something happen or to keep something from happening when you're motivated. If you're not moving or you're going sideways, you're not motivated. And one of the things Gav said to me in our phone call was that, it seems to me that a lot of people as they get older lose their motivation. They just lose it. They don't know where they put it. They can't find it. It's probably where their keys are. They don't know where those are. It just escapes them. So when I began looking into this, and I thought, well, what does that mean, towards and away? Direction of movement. Towards is all about desire. It's about what we want. And desire is whatever beckons to you. You think, man, I really want that. For me, it's retirement and a legacy right now. In this moment of my life, that calls out to me, and the things I do are moving me in that direction because I want that. Away is about fear, what we don't want. And fear is an excellent short-term motivator. Fear is the kick in the rear that makes you move when you don't feel like it. And a combination of desire and fear makes for a highly motivated human being. If you know what you're moving towards and what you are moving away from, you can be an unstoppable force of nature. You can line yourself up to achieve anything. But if all you have is one or the other, like if all you have is desire and you're not afraid, you're probably going to do something stupid and get yourself killed. And if all you have is fear, you're going to burn yourself out and kill yourself. So it's that combination of knowing what you're moving towards and what you're moving away from that creates that internal state of movement in your life. So desire and motivation. All right. I developed a model of motivation. It basically says there's 6 reasons to do something and 6 reasons not to. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. Not right now. But here's what I would like to do. I'd like to say that one day I'm in the market, the farmer's market. My friend Bill Kauth walks up to me, and he tells me that he's involved in an elder project. And I looked at him, I said, oh, who are the elders? And he looked at me like I was from another planet. He smacks me, he goes, we are. And I started laughing, and so did he. I don't think we were laughing about the same thing. But we started laughing. Because I'll tell you what that brought up for me. This was the second time in my life that somebody referred to me as an elder. The first time it happened just a few years earlier. I was at the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians Conference. I believe it was in Phoenix, Arizona. Some kid, well, some 40-year-old person walks up to me and says, are you Rick Kirschner? I said, yes, I am. He says, I just want to shake your hand. I really wanted to meet you. I'm like, okay. Why? He said, because you're one of the elders. And I almost hit him. And then I restrained myself from doing that. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, you kept it alive when it was almost gone so it could get a new lease on life. You were there for that. I have such admiration for the fact that you stepped up when it was falling down. And I was like, wow, okay. You could just refer to me as somebody that's a little further down the road than you, the elder, I don't know. But when Bill said that to me, I really had a reaction to that. My reaction was, you're no elder. Because I had just come back from Cincinnati, Ohio, where I'd spent time with my father, who's 90 years old. He's an elder. Bill is like just 3 or 4 years down the road past me. He's no elder. That was my reaction. Bill and I had a nice meeting and talked afterwards, and I have to tell you, I've been transformed in my understanding of what it means to be an elder. It means farther along the road. It means more perspective. It means a better view of the playing field. More of an idea about what the rules are, who the players are. And yeah, I can think of people that I am farther down the road than. And so can you. But what good is your perspective if you don't share it? What good is it? All the things you've learned, all the struggles you've had, all the challenges you've faced, if you don't share it. Well, guess what? There's 2 ways we can share that kind of stuff with each other. One way is as a burden. I've collected all this stuff in the course of my life, and now I'd like to give it to you. Life is hard. Life is hard. It's not for the weak. You better learn some things because it's dangerous out there. That's one way. The other way is to celebrate aging. To be alive in your aging, in your eldering, in your olding. Because people are drawn to people who celebrate life. And they will ask you for your experience and draw on you for it. So, getting elder is a matter of perspective. And relative to a newcomer, the elder person has the broader view. There's an agricultural saying where I grew up. When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotten. It finishes when you're blue, you're through. It's agricultural. If you think it through, it actually is a very good metaphor. And there's a joke that I heard where I grew up, that everybody that's born in this world is going to die. I almost started tonight, but you took the line. I was going to start by saying, I'm dying. And so are you. But I didn't do that. But every person born in this world is going to die, and it's like we're standing on top of a very tall building. Let's say it's 50 or 100 stories, and it's you and me, and we both get blown over the edge of the roof, and we're both dropping at about 32 feet per second. There we go. But there's two ways to take the ride. One is to watch the ground rapidly approaching and drop dead of a heart attack about halfway down. And the other is to look around, enjoy the view, and go, so far, so good. So I'd like to end with a word, and the word comes from Gaia's business, and that word is sage. What is a sage? Well, I think we would all agree a sage is a wise person, but some of you know that sage is a four-letter word, and four-letter words make acronyms. And some of you hearing that go, sage, and you work it out, and you realize, oh, stay angry, get even. But that's not where I was going with it. Because it also could mean set a great example. How do we blaze a trail to a sustainable future that's worth living in for our children, our grandchildren? We set the example for it. I honestly believe that the future is going to be beautiful for the human race. I really do. I think we're going to get through all of this, but there's no guarantee. And it's on us to get the lessons passed back so that those kids won't have to take so long to get the lesson after they take the test. Make sense to you? Yeah. So let me end with these words. We're never too old to learn something new. We're never too dated to get a refresh. And we're never too far along to be strong. I'm thinking those would make good lyrics for a song. Thanks, everybody. Happy Eldering Field.